Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Hunt from Pharmacy Support and I'm here to share some top tips and techniques on how to cope with stress and look after your well-being as you prepare for your assessment. I'm going to start with 6 top tips. My first top tip is take control. So you've just learned all about creating study plans and how to prepare for the assessment. And creating a realistic study plan is a really important way of taking control. If you take control, you're less likely to feel overwhelmed and then get feelings of stress and anxiety. My second top tip is to stay positive. It's proven that a positive mindset can have positive outcomes. So I think this is about accepting that it's going to be a challenging period, but believing you can do it. Um, my third top tip is to aim for a good work study life balance. To really manage your time and not being scared of saying no if something's going to interrupt your study time. Um, it's also really important to make sure you're planning time for yourself, so planning time to recharge the batteries and relax. Number 4 is connecting with others. So it's really important during this time to make sure you have support around you, to make sure you have someone to talk to. I know it can feel a little bit difficult because of the situation we're in, but just FaceTiming someone at the end of the day and having a chat can make you feel much better, particularly if you've had a full on day. Number 5, avoid unhealthy habits. I know that it can feel quite tempting to pour a glass of wine after a stressful day, but to try and avoid alcohol, smoking, and caffeine during this time will help. Number 6, be active. So exercise won't make all the stress just disappear, but it will definitely reduce some of that emotional intensity that you may be feeling if you are feeling a bit stressed and overwhelmed. Um, so it is important to plan in time to be active, or if you are feeling overwhelmed, to go out and maybe take a walk. And I talked a few times there about stress. It's really important to be aware of those early signs of stress because if you are starting to feel stressed, you can then plan in things to help kind of diffuse this. So some of the things like feeling angry, feeling quite overwhelmed, not sleeping well, feeling tearful, getting headaches, these can all be early signs of stress. So it's important we do something about them. And a way to do something about dealing with stress is to prioritize our well-being. So we talk a lot at the charity about the 5 ways to well-being, and essentially these are just 5 ways to enhance our well-being. The key actions, really. As you can see, they are all actions. So I'll just quickly run through them and think about them in the context of preparing for the exam. So give is all about giving back because it feels good to give. And in normal times, that might be volunteering for a charity, that might be giving money, it might be giving time. And thinking about the exam, this might just be giving time to somebody else going through a um, similar period of their life. So someone else sitting the assessment, you might FaceTime them and just see how they are and give a little bit of your time. And that links to connect. So connect is all about connecting with others. So I touched on this in my top tips, but it is important to feel part of something and feeling connected. It's really important and one of the 5 ways to well-being. Um, Being active, I already touched on this, but we all know a positive impact on physical activity, both on our physical health and our mental health. Um, Learning is a key 5 way to well-being, where you'll definitely be learning during this period as you continue to study and prepare for the exam. I think an important tip here is about reflection. So you will have your study plan, and it will always feel like you've got quite a lot to still get through. But to take time to reflect on how far you've come through your study plan and reflecting about how far you've actually learned, because it can sometimes feel overwhelming if you just look at what you've got in front of you rather than taking that time to reflect back. And the fifth one is taking notice. And this is linked to mindfulness that you might have heard of. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about mindfulness in a minute. But taking notice fundamentally is just about being more aware of the surroundings and taking that time to be aware. So if we just think about well-being like a battery, there's definitely things that charge up our well-being, and there's definitely things that drain our well-being. So we need to constantly think about how we keep it charged. Um, as we prepare for the exam, studying will drain our battery, so it is really important to do things to kind of charge our battery. And it's important to think about what charges up your battery, because we're all not the same and we all enjoy different things. So for example, if we take the being active, if you're a keen runner, it might be that you're planning to go for some runs and that might be something you enjoy. If you're not keen on running, that's not really going to help. So planning in something you enjoy, a walk or some yoga or another activity, is really important. It's what fits you. And if we think about what underpins our well-being, it's really important to go back to basics and look after ourselves. So I think it's really important in times of stress to consider looking after ourselves, but it's not always a thing we go to. So, when we are feeling stress, it's sometimes much easier to do things that don't help our well-being. So if we just think about the basics, getting a good night's sleep will be really important to recharge, particularly because there'll be a lot going on. Planning in that activity, as I mentioned, eating healthily and making sure you eat healthy and regularly. So it probably feels really tempting to ring for a takeaway when we're feeling really busy, but having nutritious meals really helps boost the brain. And there are some tips. I mean, I'm showing a few good apps there that can help with some of this, but some easy meals that you could maybe cook and plan in those meals. So it's less tempting to kind of call for a takeaway, and planning in kind of regular breaks to make sure you eat and drink. So if you need to put that on your study plan, put it on your study plan, but just make sure that you plan in that time. So I said I would go back to mindfulness because this can be a really effective technique to help deal with pressure, stress and anxiety, and it is a recognised technique available on the NHS. And mindfulness is about connection. So I mentioned connecting being one of the 5 ways to well-being, and it's connecting to what's around you really, and it's about being present and being aware of our thoughts and feelings, so that instead of feeling overwhelmed, we can kind of take control of that. It's really easy to kind of rush through life and planning lots of other things and not kind of take that time to take a minute and reflect back. But it can be really beneficial just taking 5 minutes. We know sometimes when we feel overwhelmed to just take 5 minutes to breathe and to reflect on how we're going to deal with something is much better than kind of letting stress overwhelm us. So this could be a really great technique to reduce stress as you kind of prepare for the exam and to improve your mood. And planning in some of this time is really helpful to make sure that you do it. And it can just be a few minutes every day. Mindfulness can be done in lots of different ways, but if you want that guided mindfulness, the Headspace app is really useful. I'm just sharing that information on the screen now. That can help you through some kind of guided mindfulness practice. But I'm just going to share a key activity that might help you see kind of some of the benefits of mindfulness. It is only really short, and if you are in a position to kind of relax and close your eyes, that will be most beneficial. So the only thing I want you to do in this activity is focus on your breath, which sounds really easy, but it can be quite difficult, and mindfulness does take a little bit of practice. So all I want you to do for the next minute is to focus all your attention on your breathing. I want you to notice how it feels every time you take a breath in and a breath out. And it might be you want to slow that breathing down and become really mindful of it. It's likely that your mind will drift off. You might hear something in the background or see something. As your mind drifts off, just gently try and bring it back to your breath. So if we can just take a few minutes. So if you just sit still now and focus on that breath, both in and out. So just keep focusing on the breath. And just think about how you feel at the moment. I'm really hoping just from looking at that breath and feeling it, and I know some of you might still be doing it, hopefully you're starting to feel a little bit more relaxed. You may notice that you hear things that normally pass you by. So as you're focusing on that breath, things start, your other kind of senses are heightened. It's funny because breathing is something we do all the time, but we do it without even noticing. So this is a really simple technique to find a simple moment of mindfulness that you can do anywhere. Um, it doesn't have to be restricted just to breathing, just sitting and kind of noticing one thing in particular. But it's the same principle, and definitely if you just take maybe 5 minutes to practice something like this every day, it will just help you manage that stress and help you feel calmer. I think particularly if you are feeling overwhelmed, to take kind of that mindfulness moment and to take yourself off and just focus on that breathing might just help as a way to release kind of any stress or tension you might be feeling. It does feel a little bit strange at first, and it does take a little bit of practice, but trust me, to stick with it and just find your own way of doing it will be beneficial. And just something on managing worry. So some people might feel incredibly worried at this moment and feel stress and anxious. And if you are struggling with worry, stress or anxiety, there is help out there, and there are some really good helps to help with managing worry. Um, when we talk about worry at the charity, we often talk about writing things down. So if in particular it's affecting your sleep, um, you might want to write down any worries or anything you might want to do the next day before you go to bed to help kind of get it off your mind. Particularly if you think about something in terms of your study plan and you want to write it down, getting it down so you're not thinking about it all night is really important. And the charity also has the Wardley Wellbeing Hub that you might want to check out. This has got some really useful tips and tricks. So if you're, say, struggling with sleep, it's got some guides on sleep, things to do to help you relax before you go to bed, to help you get a good night's sleep. As you can see just from this screen, there's all sorts on there, and there's also links to external resources and apps that might be useful. And you're not alone. So if you do need us, we are available. We are your charity. We have an information line. You can contact us by email. You can go on our website. And we do have a listen and friends service. So if you do need any peer support, you can get in contact with us for that. So good luck. I wish you all the best, and make sure you look after yourselves. Thanks, everybody.